Awesome. So welcome to week 6. Let me see if we can do video. It will help. It will help some people. I don't know whether my video will work out, but if it doesn't, we'll survive without it. Awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. So yeah, welcome to week 6. I don't know whether my video has decided to go dark on me. Okay. Welcome to week 6 of the 12-week AWS Workshops Challenge. It was just hit me now. I was talking about 30%. You're 50% in. You're officially halfway through your 12-week AWS Workshop Challenge, which is no mean feat. Congratulations to each and every one of you. So today we are having Emmanuel. It's not about me, so it's about our guest speaker. He's a cloud consultant and a technical trainer. As I've said, he holds a coveted status of an AWS authorized instructor, an amazing person as public speaker, multi-session. I cannot say even the number of sessions I've seen him speak. So you're going to have such an amazing session with him on serverless and event-driven architecture. How can you build with AWS Lambda? So I can't wait, because anytime I hear from Emmanuel, I learn something new, no matter how experienced I am. So you're in for a treat. And without any further ado, Emmanuel, the mic is yours, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin, and it's good to see you here. I mean, so this is true community at work, because Kevin is all the way with AWS User Group Kenya, and then he's pitching in with AWS Community Group in User Group in what's the name, Yaounde, right? So this is more or less what we are actually looking out for in terms of the community. Okay, so with Paola and then the whole team as well. But it's good to be here. And one thing Kevin did not mention was that the public speaking program that he mentioned, he was more or less one of the mentors out there. And I mean, he was literally helping me through my session, and it was pretty good in there as well, providing good feedback and all of that. So I'm definitely learning a lot from him. And a number of the sessions this year, interestingly, I've not done so many sessions. The key one that I did, it was actually from Kevin's recommendation, that with the ALS group. So it's pretty good to be here, and pretty good to see all of you. Let me see if I can just drop my camera a bit. Yes, so it's good to be here, and great to see all of you. I think there may be a number of you on the call as well that I may have interacted with over the period. And so good to have you back. And I'm hoping that we could learn a few things as we go along. Okay. All right. So let me just round up a few things here, and then let me share my screen. Give me a second. Let's see. Do we have here? Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, so once I share the screen, right, the key thing I would say, we'll try for us to do as much practical as possible, but we'll just go through a few things before we start, just to give us some idea about how serverless is and all of that. I had 2 demos that I wanted to share, but in the end, I may just end up doing one, because the other one, it took me a while to actually get that done. Okay, so just bear with me from that. The magic trick is that if you want to have a demo, of course, you have to have tested that out for like quite a number of times to make sure it's working, and then of course maybe have a how do you call it, a backup should you have it not working on the demo day. So that's just one thing there. So I'm not confident in the other ones. Okay, and then so I'll just have us go with just the one that I have. Okay, so let's just get started then. I don't know if you can see my screen. Yeah, I don't know if you can see my screen. Yeah, I should be showing now. All right, great. So my initial, when I put out the session, right, I had for AWS Lambda. That was what I had, because it was some topic that I already had in mind. But of course, if you just say AWS Lambda, it's some way. Okay, so Paula asks that we actually have it as you have at the very top. So serverless and then event driven architectures, and then specifically focusing on building with AWS Lambda. And so we're going to see how that sort of ties into everything that we're going to be doing when it comes to the AWS environment, and then when it comes to the serverless environment. Okay. All right. So with that said, let's just get started. I think we've done a bit of this introduction. So I'm Ibadomingo, and I'm an authorized instructor, a community builder, and then a cloud consultant as well. In terms of certification, a few certifications for my belt, and multi-cloud, so with GCP, AWS as well, and a bit of Azure. I do work on some of the things within the Azure environments. GCP not so much, primarily with AWS, and then a bit of Azure as well. So multi-cloud, and then everything that's sitting there. I mean, the good thing here is that for this challenge in particular, all of us would be actually learning on some different things and then some different approaches. So it's a very good way to go. It's not necessarily about the certification, but in terms of the knowledge that you are building, the portfolios that you are building, and then what you're actually doing on the console. Okay, so definitely keep that in mind in there. Right. This I did not finish on that, but I did not round up on that. But we're going to be talking about quite a number of things. So more or less what the serverless architecture is. And then we're going to be seeing some of the services which are available, and talk about serverless and then microservices. I mean, they sort of tie in at some point in time. And then we'll look at some of the, how do you call it, the serverless options, which are on AWS. And we round off with our demo. Okay, I think we have quite a number of time. And of course, as we are going along, if you have some questions, you can always ask. I may possibly just fend off the questions to Kevin to answer that, or maybe if Paula is still around, I'll have a answer those for you guys. All right. So with that said, let's get started. So this is more or less where we're going to start from. So when we talk about serverless, right, we're looking at two things. We have the server, and then we have the less. Now, I remember back in school, there was we talk about suffixes and then prefixes, right? So what is the suffix? What's the prefix? What does that mean? And all of that. So you can have words like, let's say, borderless. You can have words like paperless, right? Now, when we say a paperless economy or paperless system, we are literally saying that, okay, then there are no papers anywhere, or we're not going to be using any paper, right? So that's just a bit of that. Let's say borderless. I mean, for us on this call, there's no border anywhere, okay, because we are literally all on this call. There's not, let's say, some border that we have to cross to even meet on this particular call, because technology makes that possible, right? Now, so with that said, right, the suffix less basically talks about having nothing to do with something, okay, or without something. So when we come to, for example, the word serverless, right? The key thing, or the very first thing that comes to mind, will be without service. Now, maybe I'll just ask us, just to maybe engage, right? You can put that in the chat or not. Now, when we say serverless, right, do we really mean that we don't have any service somewhere, or what is it? Yes. So how does that go to be anyway? So if we say serverless, does that mean we do not have any service at all, or how does that sit like? Anyone can just put that in the chat. If you want to unmute as well, you could also go ahead and then unmute. Yeah. Yes. Anyone? Or should I just point someone? Anyone to take that? When we say serverless, what does that mean? That we do not have any service? I mean, based on the premise that we had. So I think the premise we had is that less means without. Okay, so if it's without, does that mean that when we have the serverless architecture, does that mean that we do not actually have any service? Well, the answer is pretty simple anyway. It's not quite that we don't have any service, right? It's not that we don't have any service. The thing here is that you would not necessarily interact with the service. So we've had a number of sessions in here. where, for example, we looked at the EC2 instance. Now, if you are working with an EC2, it means that you literally manage the whole infrastructure. So in terms of, let's say, updating that, some patches and all of that, those are things that you would have to manage as the user, or as the, how do you call it? As the system admin or the cloud ops admin, right? You are the person who would actually have to manage that. So that's just that. So when we say serverless, it doesn't mean that necessarily we don't have any servers. No, it means that there are actually some servers, but it's more about how we manage that. Now, if you've done some bit of how do you call it? If you've gone through AWS for a while, you'd actually be very conversant with this, where we talk about the shared responsibility model, right? So in terms of who manages what, when it comes to the how do you call it, the user, when it comes to the AWS, right? So how do you call it? There's a term that we say the, I've literally forgotten. So something of the cloud, something wait, of the cloud, yes. So of the cloud, and then in the cloud. I mean, those sort of a thing. So at any point in time, right, there's some aspect that you as a user would have to take care of, and then there's some aspect that AWS would have to take care of. Now, when you come to the serverless, it means that a lot of the things are done by AWS, and then you just have the minute things to actually work on. Okay, so that's more or less what you're looking at. So you have a model where you can build and then deploy the applications, and then AWS manages that for you. So you talk about your Lambda, you talk about your Fargate, okay, all of these things, AWS literally manages that for you. And then all you have to do is, okay, provide that Lambda code, maybe you have your layers as well, and then you actually make that available, and then that works for you. Okay, so that's more or less to do with serverless. So it doesn't mean no servers at all. Definitely there are servers anywhere, because once you even get to the cloud, the underlying infrastructure to have you log in to do all those other things, these are all things that you have available on the cloud, right? So with that said, there are a number of principles that you'd possibly be looking at when it comes to the serverless environment. Okay, so the very first one, we talk about function as a service, where we know of AWS Lambda. Okay, that's the key one. Now, if you were in some other cloud provider, you'd have a different approach to that. Okay, and then of course we talk about backend as a service. So not necessarily you build it out, let's say, for example, your authentication system. So you don't want to build an authentication system. You could actually go with Cognito to actually manage in terms of that authentication for you. Okay, so that's just one of the things that you could look at. In terms of storage, right? How do you manage that? You could actually get to use that as well. In terms of even your APIs, right? You could have the API gateway literally manage all of that for you. So these are all aspects that we talk about when it comes to this principle in terms of backend as a service. So thinking about all of this, it means that whatever deployment that you are doing, it's very easy to do. It's you are able to do that very quickly, okay, without having to worry so much about that. And then the last bit that we talk about will be the event-driven architecture. Okay, so you are able to now build your infrastructure of some particular event that comes up. Now, if you look at the AWS site, there's a typical example that is given about working with S3, where I think it was, a demo. So you have an upload done within an S3 bucket, right? Now, imagine you have an application. Now, you want to just demo quite some very minute images for users, right? Now, when they upload the images, it's very huge, okay? And you want to just compress that in some sense. Now, whatever image is uploaded, then you can now compress that image or reduce the size to maybe a thumbnail format, which will be available on the site. Now, if a user wants to see the full image, of course, once they click on that, then they can be able to now view that. So based off the events that, okay, this particular image is uploaded, then there is a response. Okay, you can have, let's say, maybe a request, an HTTP request, for example, okay, or maybe a change in the service. All of these things are things that you can look out for in terms of the serverless computing. Now, these are more or less key principles. Of course, there are other principles that you could also look at, okay, but these are the key ones that we'll talk about. Yeah, I think we've talked about this already. Right. So, talking about the advantages, right? So, what are the advantages that you'd probably be looking at once you are working with the serverless architecture? So, the very first one is in terms of the cost efficiency. Okay. So, when you come to even the cloud space, you are talking about capex, you are talking about opex, and all of those things, right? Now, the key advantage with the serverless architecture is that you pay per use. So the basic example is to do with AWS Lambda. Okay, so imagine you hosting some application on an EC2 instance, right? Now, it means that you'd have your storage, your EBS, for example, you'd have the EBS, you have in terms of what else? You have your images that you're supposed to manage and all of those things. You have your networking, quite a number of things that you are running. Now, imagine that every day, right, you process just one item, okay, or maybe you do some calculation, okay, and that calculation takes about 15 minutes, or let's say 10 minutes, right? Now, if you are hosting that application on EC2, or if you are running that particular process on the EC2, it means that at that point, maybe you may literally have your EC2 running the whole time. Okay, of course, you can actually have the advantage of Lambda to actually ensure that at some point it goes off and then at some point it comes on. The demo we'll be doing would actually help us to make that happen anyway. But that's the thing. Now imagine your server is running the whole time, as compared to, let's say, you having a Lambda function. When you actually want to now process that, then you make that call. Lambda does its magic, and then it's able to process that for you. You store that in maybe a DynamoDB or somewhere else. Now, that is just what pay per use. Now, you don't have to think about having that sit for the whole day, okay, for that one instance. Okay, so it's one thing that you have to it's something that you actually get to have an advantage of. Okay, and then of course, if you are tying that into microservices, it becomes more or less a very good approach that you have. Of course, one disadvantage in this sense would be in terms of the code start. So, for example, your EC2 instance, if it's running all the time, if there's a request, it means it can respond to that. Now, the Lambda would now have to have some stats going before you are able to get whatever it is. Of course, it's very minute in terms of the number of minutes or whatever, but it's still something that is available, okay, in terms of the stats and all of that. Now, another thing is in terms of the scalability. So you are able to scale your resources, okay, so whatever resource that you are using, you are able to now scale that. So if you want to scale up, you want to scale down, it's able to do that for you, okay. You don't have to now, let's say, create out some groups, okay, some skill sets or something that you want to manage. No, AWS would actually be able to do that for you, and then it's much easier to work from. And then, of course, in terms of the productivity, okay, so you don't have to now worry about, okay, how do I set out my EC2 and all of that? You upload that to the Lambda, Lambda runs that for you, and then you are pretty much good to go. Just you focusing on your productivity. And then one thing here is in terms of the security. Now, you notice that AWS built, I mean, literally all the cloud providers build security into their environment. AWS is very big in terms of security, right? So you have security also built into that, okay, as compared to, let's say, maybe you running your EC2 instance. Maybe you may not build out some security in there directly. But then with this, whatever serverless architecture that you are using, you now have security also built into that. So these are all things that you could consider as you go along. Now, I just put this in here because, of course, when we talk about serverless, right, we have the concept of microservices coming in as well, okay? And then how do these compare to each other? Of course, serverless, we know that, okay, you are not really thinking about the microservice in terms of the infrastructure. Now, for microservices, it means that now for whatever application that you are building, you are literally putting them in more or less some individual silos where you can build from. And the good thing is that with these silos that you want to deploy from, the serverless architecture would be able to help you make that happen. Of course, if you wanted to go with some service, some managed service, that is also possible, okay? Because in the end, microservices do not necessarily mean you using serverless environment. That's just what I wanted to actually put in there. It's just about how loosely coupled your application is, and then that's that. But of course, you can take advantage of the serverless environment. So maybe you can have a Lambda, you could have, let's say, some API gateway, all of these as part of your microservice that you are building out, or your microservice architecture. Okay. All right. And so, yeah, so these are two paradigms. Okay, they have their own advantages in terms of the building and then the scaling, but they are not the same. Okay, and then of course, with your microservices, once you are building that out, you could take advantage of serverless environments to also work on. That's just one thing to take note of. Now, we'll be getting into a couple of things. Let me just get some things done here. So I just want us to look at some of the services, the serverless services which are available. See. All right, but does anyone know some of the serverless environments which are available, or the serverless services? You can just drop that in the chat. Anyone, any idea? Some of the serverless services which are available when it comes to AWS. Yes. What are some of the services that you've heard as relates to AWS? Yes. Okay. Now I think for one of these examples, right? We actually oh yeah, so Lambda, then maybe that's one, and then there are quite a number of others. Now, interestingly, if you look here, okay, on the AWS page, you can see Amazon S3, okay, represented here as what some bit of serverless. Okay, so that's one thing. Yeah, DynamoDB is also one thing in there. SQS, SNS, these are all aspects that you can look at. Now, there are literally 4 categories which are available. So you have the compute, you have the application integration, and then of course you have the data store. And then the last bit is, let me see, what do we have? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So those are the key ones. So the data store, the application integration, of course, the compute, and then in terms of the data store as well. So these are more or less some of the categories in there. Now you can see that from here we have about 3 listings, okay, which are available. Now the most common that we would talk about would definitely be the S3, which is more or less like a widely used service. Okay, so you have S3 available literally for everyone. So you can use that to store your files. You can host your static websites there. You have all of these things there. And the good thing is that we've actually already talked about S3 within this 12-week challenge. So that is pretty much okay. But aside that, we have the Lambda, okay, which is for your function as a service. So this literally sits with the area or the aspects of what function as a service. That becomes what you use the Lambda for. And then, of course, if you come to Fargate, it means that you're also talking about what working with containers, for example. So your ECS or your EKS, you can actually use Fargate to make that happen. So you want to host that particular serverless architecture or your serverless infrastructure in there. You could also have the Fargate. Now, when you talk about the concept of the event-driven architecture, then you can have what the event bridge, okay, which now becomes what you use to respond to certain events. So based off that, you can now respond to some events that come up, okay, and then view how all of that goes to be. And then of course we have the step functions, okay, and then we have the SQS and then the SNS. So you want to push some messages, you want to publish some messages, you can use the SQS for that. You have the SNS as well. And then of course we have the API gateway, which now helps you to manage your API. So you don't have to literally build out some few things. You can integrate that to your Lambda, and then you are pretty much good to go. And then, of course, we have the app sync. Okay, if you are working with some GraphQL aspects, these are all things that you could look at. And we have the DynamoDB, okay, which is how do you call it, which is not your regular relational database. Okay, so non-relational, you can have that going as well, and then you can use that. Now for a number of years now, okay, we have some of these serverless architectures coming up in terms of the databases. So I remember for the Redshift serverless, for example, I think it was either last year or last 2 years was when they announced that. So you still have your Redshift, your data store, your data warehouse, but then here you now have that more or less built out to be running as a serverless side of things. So you don't necessarily have to manage the data warehouse infrastructure. You're just working with what you want to use and then what you want to work with. And then with the Neptune as well, you also have that with the Aurora, okay, for your SQL database. That's also a possibility. That's for your relational database. Okay, so everything is done for you automatically, and then you are able to work with that. And then for last year, okay, so if you took note of the announcements, right? So we have the DSQL, okay, so that's also more or less some new introduction to the serverless side of things. And then we can see that for the other types, so the document DB, Elasticache, OpenSet, all of these are also available when it comes to the serverless side of things. Now, for the demo that we are going to be using, okay, we're going to be using primarily with the AWS Lambda, and then we'll actually go ahead to set out some notifications as well. So that will be more or less how we're going to do, and then maybe pitch in some bit of the event bridge. So respond to some specific events or set some event schedules that we are going to be working from. But these are more or less what we have in terms of the serverless infrastructure. Now, with that said, we'll just look at some use case here. Now, you can see that this actually talks about how DoorDash, okay, was actually able to use some of these serverless architecture to, how do you call it, to do a sweepstake. And then take note, you had about 10 million what sweepstakes or 10 million entries coming in there. Okay, that's pretty huge. Okay, very, very huge stuff to look at. Now, this was more or less the architecture that they had in there. Of course, replicated across 3 regions. Okay, don't forget, if you are building out your architecture, if you are building out your environment, because it's a serverless architecture, it doesn't mean that you'd forego the whole thing with working with the high availability or distributed system. So it's always good to have that across multiple regions, okay, to make sure that what your application is what highly available. And you can see that we have some of the services for the S3, we have the API gateway in terms of the Lambda, okay, to process that. Now you can see that there are a number of Lambda functions which are here. So we have one for the score and then one for archiving some of the data. Okay, so you have all of these functions available, performing different tasks in there. And then of course you have the Athena, okay, to gain some insight into whatever details are available. So Route 53, we have CloudFront, we have WAF, we have the S3 bucket, okay, we have the private bucket as well. We have the SQS, okay, to process that queue that will be coming through. So you have those 10 million requests which are coming through. So how do you now make sure that what every one of them is processed? So you can talk about the FIFO and then how the priority aspect of things in terms of how do you call it, processing all of that. So you have the queue set in there. And then, of course, tying that into the Lambda. So based off an item in the queue, then you can go ahead to use your Lambda to process that. So this more or less an example of that. Now, of course, the services, so Lambda, API Gateway, Route 53, SQS, these are more or less the key services that are available. Now, let me just go back to the documentation, right? Now, if you come here, there are quite a number of other use cases which are available. So you have one from Autodesk, you have one from the Nationwide Children's. Okay, these are all things, Coca-Cola, you know, there are quite a number of them which you could always review. Okay, so you can always review them. And the good thing is that once you review that, right, you get some bit of information as to how these services are being used at scale. Because someone will say, okay, if it's a Lambda that we are using, Lambda will just be for just this small task. No, but you can use that at a very large scale. So you can see here, for example, it talks about what the number of transactions that are being processed, okay, using the serverless infrastructure. And this is an interesting thing here. So it says what? Reduce cost per million transactions to what? $60. Okay. Now, if we try an experiment, okay, where you actually go ahead to create an EC2 instance. So maybe you create an, let's say, a large, okay, T3 large instance, right? And then you have that running for 60 days now, or 30 days. You know that the amount you're going to be paying would be more than this $60, right? But here, for just that 1 million transaction, right, you get to actually save on about $60. So these are all things. I would say that the use cases are some things that you have to actually take very good note of, okay, because it also gives you some ideas to what is happening, what is being done in the best practice. And you can see here for this architecture, it's pretty simple, okay? So in terms of the ETL pipeline that they are running, right, they're just using the Lambda to actually process everything for them, okay? They have some step functions here as well. They have some, oh no, the step functions are here. And then they have some bit of fire hose here as well, and then a number of things. So it's a very simple architecture. You could build something around this for your organization, or just think along those lines to make that happen. And the good thing is that you actually get to pay for what you use. Imagine you have the same, let's say, pipeline working on your EC2 or something, right? It's something that you'd have to look at, okay? All right, so that's just that for the use cases. You could always check on that. Let me see if I could find the use case for the DoorDash. There were some very interesting things that were there as well. I think it did not show here. Okay, let me just find that and then we can proceed. But is there anyone who has any question? Any question from anyone? All right. So if you have any question, you can put up your hand or just put that in the chat. I think okay, yes, that's that. Yeah. Right. So this for the DoorDash, okay? And you could see that in terms of what they were actually able to do. Oh, sorry. I see some hands up. I'm coming. Let me just run through this and then we can come to that. So you can see in terms of the entries, right? These were the number of entries that were processed. So it means that there are about 10 million requests coming in, okay, just through this infrastructure or environment. And then per minute, right, they were actually able to process about 725,000. Now, you remember when we were talking about in terms of scaling up and then scaling down, right? This is something that you can have within your serverless environment. So as much as 725,000 requests, okay, through the API gateway, that was something that was done. And then for in terms of the cloud front, right? So you have some requests coming in, okay, so maybe some put requests, get requests, all of these are things which are in there as well. I'll definitely recommend that you go through some of these use cases, okay? It gives you a fair idea of what is being done. You could actually replicate some of them for yourself, okay, and then just get that going as well. All right, I'll come to the questions. I saw now your hand was up. You could just go ahead and then we'll have Emmanuel also ask for his question. Yes. Or did not drop off? Yeah, Nadali, yes, you can go ahead.
Yes, you've answered the question.
Okay.
Answered. Yeah.
So, what was the question?
I just wanted you to go over the use cases. So because I was into something. So when you went over the DoorDash, I had some pretty much idea about it. So that's okay.
Okay. All right. Great. I shared the link in the chat, so you could always review that as well. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Welcome. Emmanuel, you can go ahead with your question.
Hi, Emmanuel. Good afternoon. Sorry, good morning from here. Yeah, I wanted to understand how Lambda processes concurrent requests on default without any probably queuing settings with any other service in front, right?
Okay. All right. So by default, right, of course, there's some bit of concurrent bits that you could have running, okay? But here, in terms of, so we see that for the, let me just share that again with the architecture for the DoorDash. Where's that? Let me see if I could find that in the now. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if we come back to this particular architecture, right, you can see that, of course, we have the Lambda functions in there, but you could see that what we still have the SQS in there, okay, to also help you what serve as a buffer. So of course you can have the concurrent transactions and everything being done, but there's a limit. Okay, if you look in the documentation, you actually get to see in terms of the limits by which, or in terms of the number of processes you can run together. So the SQS now serves as a buffer to now help you what manage all of these things. So for all the things we saw about, let's say, in terms of the request that were processed, so about 725,000, right? Now, it will not necessarily mean that all of those were processed at the same time, okay? There's that bit of the architecture. So in terms of building out your architecture well, to make sure that what you don't have some errors, you can have the SQS in there, and then based off that, now Lambda can be able to process that. Okay, so that is one of the things that you'd actually get to look at. So of course, there's some bit of concurrency for Lambda, but it will not scale up to, let's say, running about 725,000 at the same time. Okay, so you just have to have like some SQS to make sure that what all of these are processed in a timely and then a fashionable manner. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, very well. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. And you could actually read more on the documentation for Lambda. Okay, you'd actually, so once you are building out the infrastructure, right, or the architecture, you could always read through the documentation to get a fair idea of what are the limits, okay, in terms of the services, what are the limits? So how many requests can you process at a time? What are the concurrency in terms of even the memory? Right? I did not talk about this, but when you are working with Lambda, for example, it means that you'd have a specific amount of memory that you'd have to work with as you go along. So that is just one of the things that you have to take note of. Okay. Okay, great. Is there any question from anyone? I would want us to, let's say, start off with our demos, if anything. But if there's any question, we could take that before we start off. Okay, all right. Then I think we're all good. And then we could look at that. Yeah, so this is in terms of the Lambda, right? This is mainly what we're going to be using anyway for this demo. That would be like the very key thing that we're going to be working with. And as I mentioned, right, so we have quite a number of divisions. So in terms of the compute, in terms of the integration, okay, data integration, in terms of even the data store. Now, Lambda sits with the compute, okay, so compute, you think about ECS, EKS, you think about EC2, right? Yeah, you could also think about all the other things for, what do you call it? No, wait. You can think about the other services, other compute services. They are also there, okay? But Lambda is more or less for your serverless side of things, and then you could have that done. Let me just share this here in the chat, and then you could also review that. Now, I'm not going to, let's say, go through these services one by one. Okay, you notice I'd not really add that to my slide, but you could always go along and then read through them to see what exactly they mean, or what exactly they are actually used for. Okay, that would be a good place to actually start off. So for your Lambda, for your Fargate, your Event Bridge, the SNS, the SQS, you could always get to read about them to see how they actually get to work. And so I want us to go ahead. Okay, I do not have that architecture here. I wanted to share with the architecture I'll be working with. But I do not have that available. But the key thing, okay, I wanted to get my tablet to have that drawn, but that would take a while. But let me see if I could do some very crude drawing of what exactly we're going to be looking at here. Let's see. Okay. All right. I hope my screen is still visible. So I do not have my pen, so I'm just my tablet. So I'll just have to do some code design from here. Okay, good. So with what we are going to be doing, right? As I mentioned, we're going to be using the Lambda. Okay, wow, this is going to be hard. Okay, we're going to be using the Lambda, okay, primarily. So our Lambda, and once we have our Lambda, right, we're going to tie that into our EC2 instance. So our EC2 instance. And what we're going to do is that from our Lambda, we're going to now start or stop this. Now, this is actually more or less some use case that I had with some folks, some project that I was working on, where there was some dashboard. Okay, so we had that in the, what was it? Python. Okay, so that was, yeah. So one of the Python framework, the web frameworks, okay, was where we had that. But the key thing is that for that particular application, right, it was accessed just within, like, during the morning. Okay, so just the morning, and then that was that. Now the thing was that if it kept running, of course, that means that there will be some additional cost. And of course, since the web application, not necessarily something that, let's say, you could actually build that directly from Lambda. Okay, so the approach was just to now have that still running in the EC2, but then have some event triggers. Okay, so from the event bridge, okay, let me just put that for EB here. Yeah, so from the event bridge, you have that trigger, okay, and then the Lambda function will now be able to start or stop that. Okay, now once that is started or stopped, there's the SNS topic, okay, which now fans out the messages to the various users. Okay, so based off this, you are now able to now send out all of that. So you can see that we have the Lambda, we have the event bridge, we have the SNS. Now, if you wanted to even go a step further to know, okay, in terms of the starts and then the stops, it means that we could also implement this with what? The DynamoDB, okay, Dynamo. And then based off the DynamoDB, right, we can now say that, okay, the stats, this was when it started, this was when it stopped. Of course, from the SNS, you get to see that that will be within your email. But of course, you could also have that as what? Part of what? Your DynamoDB. Now, another interesting thing, if you wanted to even take this a step further, will be that, okay, on the occasion or at the point where I actually want to start or stop this, I could have maybe my API gateway, okay, which would now be used to configure. So I'll have an endpoint for, let's say, maybe the start and then the stop. Okay, so based off that particular endpoint, it means that at any point in time, if I wanted to do that, even outside of what that schedule that we wanted to have, I could still be able to do that. Okay, so these are more or less the options that are available. And I mean, I noticed that for what do you call it, for this challenge, right, there are some blog posts that you are putting out there, which is very good. Okay, and I would say to all of you, that's very good material which Jason and the team will be up for. So if you are interested in applying for, let's say, the community builder program, right, these documentation, so these sessions or whatever that you are putting out, these articles, they will be a very good fit for some of these things. So you could actually have some very simple application in there, which you could always be able to share as well. But in our case, right, so we'll just have the event bridge, we'll have the Lambda, okay, tie into the EC2 instance, okay, and then we'll also have the SNS to go with that. So with that said, I'll just go ahead and then share the console, and then we would pick up from there. All right, so just give me a second here. Okay. All right, so I'll first show with the EC2 instance. Okay, so this is actually available now. I actually built out some of these already, so I'll just walk us through what exactly is being done, okay, or what exactly needs to be done. Okay, so you can always review that for yourself. Let's see. All right, so you can see this is the instance that we'll be targeting, right? So you can see that we have the ID here. The key thing will be to start or stop that. Let me just start that for now, and then let me just show you what is in there. Okay, let's see. Let me just start that, and then I'll pick for the public IP address, and then we're going to see what it says from there. So I put a simple HTML page in there, and we just want to see how that looks like. All right. I think it's still loading. Either it's still loading or the Nginx did not run. Okay. Let me just have that open again and see. Okay. So we already talked about the EC2 instances. Okay, so I'm not going to go through this in terms of how you get your EC2 started at all, right? But this is more or less the simple page that I actually put out there. I don't know if I should just do a quick how do you call it, roundup from all of us to see how we'll probably get this done. I don't know, is there anyone who can be able to tell us? So for this particular so this is the web page that I created anyway, just to get something done. But if you wanted to have your EC2 instance, right, and then let's say your EC2 instance, based off that you want to host your web page, can someone just briefly walk us through what exactly you have to do with your EC2 instance? Anyone at all? You can just put up your hand, and then you proceed from there. Yeah. Yes, Samuel, please go ahead.
Yeah, Emmanuel, thank you. So I think if you'd want to do this whilst creating your EC2 instance, at the advanced session, you make use of the user data, and then you have your own user data script. You pass it as an argument at that aspect, and then during the creation of the EC2 instance, it's going to use the concept of bootstrapping, and then you are going to have your website showing, provided it's a public instance or it has a public IP and access to the internet, you will be able to access it. Yeah.
All right, great, thank you. So Alice, you know, this is some concept that we've already learned in the 12-week challenge, right? So it's not something new that I have to go through. And thank you for sharing on that as well, Samuel. That's very good. So Alice, I just went through those challenges, that same step. Okay, just made the setup, just bootstrap everything, of course, and then open the right spots. Okay, so of course I'm not using the how do you call it, 443 for the secure. I've not configured the SSL and all of those things, so that's just one thing to take note of. Okay, all right. So with that said, let's just get started in there, and I'll just first show the script, right, in terms of what was used to to start or stop the instance, and then we'll get into the console, okay, to see how that works. Give me a second here. Okay, great. So I'll just walk us through what exactly is happening in terms of the script that I'm actually going to be working on. Can we see my editor? Is the test visible? I believe this is visible, right? Okay. See if I could just increase that a bit. Now, this actually necessitated me to have the topic to be AWS HATS Lambda. Okay. No, Python, AWS HATS Python. Okay. So with this, right, with your basic Python, right, you can be able to now build out a number of these processes with your Lambda. Okay. It's very simple. Okay. Very, very simple to start off with. Now, the key things I added was the Boto 3. And I don't know, can anyone tell me with the Boto 3, what is that used for? Or how do we use that? Anyone? You could just raise your hand if you know what the Boto 3 is. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right, but if you know what that is, that would be good. Or you can put that in the chat. But basically what that is for is in terms of the SDK, right? So how you now interact with the AWS infrastructure. Don't forget, everything on AWS literally sits with, how do you call it? Everything on AWS sits with an API, right? So whatever you are doing is actually an API call. Okay, so with the SDK, whatever request, if you are spinning up a server, everything is literally an API call. So you have the SDK to make sure that what you can now interact with all of these things. And of course, Python SDK is very robust, so you can have that. And as well, I had a couple of things here. These are pretty standard Python stuff, so it should be okay. The next thing is in terms of the instance. So the instance I'm targeting, right? So in this case, the one I showed you, I think, okay, I did not put the ID here. I put that in the other side. Yeah, but you have the instance here. And you can see that I set an environment variable, okay, which is what? Instance ID. I'll show you where that sits within the Lambda function, okay? Because, of course, in terms of security, if you had, like, let's say, an API key, you would not want to expose that within your environment variable. So that's just one of the things that you could actually look at. So you see that I had coded that here, but I also have the environment variable, which is available, okay? So you could always review that. And then from here, from line 10, what I do is that what I'm able to now connect to the EC2 instance, okay? I'm able to connect to the EC2 instance and then the SNS, okay? I'm able to instantiate that, okay? So create an instance of that, which I can now interact with. So I call the EC2, and then I have that what within the region. And then, of course, for the SNS, the simple notification service as well, that is also something that you could have here. And then based off that, now I could start within the Lambda function. I could now give some general detail, and then I'm able to now start the instance. You see that starting the instance is very simple. So just based off this, right? So EC2 start instance, I pass in the ID, the instance ID, and then it's able to start that for me. It's very simple. I don't have to overthink it, write so much code. It's just right there. Now, the additional bit of logic here is something else, because what I was trying to do here, what was being done here, is to now get the IP address. You notice that, so here's the challenge, right? Because I stopped the instance and then I started, it means that I will not have, let's say, the same IP address available every other time. Okay, so in that case, I need to now pick out that particular IP address and then be able to share that with the user in question or whoever will get to view that particular application, okay, during that set period of time. So that is what this particular logic is. I'm not going to go through that anyway, but it just waits to get the IP address. Once it gets the IP address, it now passes that as part of what the message, okay, the notification message, and then we can now see that what the IP address is available. Okay, so this what you get here, the dashboard URL, you have the public IP address in there, and then you can now be able to access that. So that is literally what this is doing. Now I'm going to create a repo, okay, where I'll share a lot of the this particular code that I use, and then you can also reference that as well. Okay, so just take note of that. Now the last thing was to do with the SNS. Okay, so within the SNS, now you are able to publish that particular message, right? So just with 4 lines of code, I'm able to connect to the SNS, and then I'm able to now publish that particular message. So with that message, I'll just say that, okay, the instance was started at this time, okay, but oh no, not that one. So hello there, kindly head to this link. That's with the link in question, and then you are able to now access the URL. I think I had a sample one run yesterday when I was going through the module. So let me just see if I could just find that. Yep. With the start that I did, that would actually not show. So yeah, that's that. Give me a second. Yeah, so this is how it's actually going to be looking like. Okay, so once the message comes through, yeah, so it says what? Hello there, kindly head to this link. So it puts the IP address there, and then to access that. Now you notice that this particular IP address will be different from the one we just set. Okay, so just take note of that as you go along. But it's just having that done to notify you that, okay, it's actually started. And then if you stop that as well, you also have that message in there. Right, so that's for the code. And of course, once I do the publish, once I publish this, then it will be available. And then if I wanted to stop that as well, okay, very simple code. You have that done. Stop the instance, you pass the ID, okay, and then I can now do the SNS to now publish the message to the users. So it's very straightforward. Maybe I'll pause here. From what I've put here, I don't know if anyone has some question or someone is curious about something that they want to ask based off this particular set of code that I put in there. And don't worry about memorizing the number of these things, right? The good thing is that you have the documentations available, which will now be able to help you to walk through them. And then in addition, of course, with how do you call it? With the advent of AI largely available, right? You could actually run through some of these things, and then it can be able to give you some bit of code that you could also use to implement what you have in mind. Okay. All right. So I don't know if anyone else has, if anyone has a question. Okay. So if there's no question, right, I'll have us just go ahead then. I'm trying to create the repo before I forget. At least you can have access to that. And then once you're done, I'll just go ahead to share that. Okay, so let's get started. So what I want to do now, right, just a bit of a walkthrough in terms of what needs to be done. Yeah, so we have the code, okay, to stop the instance, right? And we'll talk about the environment variable, of course, and then create the SNS topic, okay, the SNS topic, and then how to subscribe to that particular topic, and then the call for the Lambda function. Now, I'd wanted to do with the Dynamo table and then the S3, okay, for the HTML page, but that will not be done. But at least for the first 5 or so, that is what we're going to be looking at. So with that said, let's get started with the SNS. Okay, so if I go to the SNS side of things, so if I go to the SNS side of things, then I could now create the notification service. Okay, now I already have some topics in there. And the good thing with SNS is that you could actually work with emails, or you can work with even SMS. Now, if you're working with SMS, there's some bit of cost associated, right? So it's good to always know that, okay, there's some bit of cost, and then you plan towards that. But if you are using the email, for example, that is that's free. Okay, you don't have to worry about paying anything. And then, of course, you also have the option to use some other services. Now, if you're starting off with the SNS, right? So you have to create your topic, right? Now you have 2 options. You have the FIFO, and then you have the standard queue. Now, standard queue means that what it processes it, I mean, based on not so ordered a structure. Now, if you have the FIFO queue, it means that once an item comes in, right, it has to process that at that same moment. Okay, so first in, first out. More like there's another bit of this. We have the GIGO, which is garbage in, garbage out. So whatever programming that you are doing, right, whatever information you put out there will be what will be sent in there. So we just go with the standard for now, and then we can give that a name. So we are doing a 12-week challenge, 12-week challenge. So I'll just go ahead with that and then say serverless, right? And the name, okay, that could be optional. Now you can see in terms of security, right? There are a number of things here in terms of what the encryption, right? So if you wanted to have some encryption, okay, server side, you can have that. In terms of the access policy, right, you could also set that. Now, don't forget, with your Lambda, your AWS, everything interacting, there has to be the need for you to interact or create some bit of some bit of rules, okay, which will be used to access the resources. So it's very good to actually have that in mind. So based off that, you can have some basic basic access policy. Okay, if you look here, you know that you are allowing access. Okay, anyone within your AWS environment can access that. In terms of the action, so to publish, to remove permission, you know, all of these things are things which are set in there. Okay, and the data protection, you could also look at that. Some basic protection, you know, advanced, you could always look at that as well. The deny configuration, the identify configuration. I mean, quite a number of these things you could look at. In terms of the delivery, right? So do you want HTTP, HTTPS? There are quite a number of things you could also look at. The tags. So tags are very important wherever you are building within AWS, at least to track some of the things that you are doing. You could always have that. And I mean, we are doing very simple stuff. So I'll just go ahead and then create the topic. Now, let me just come here. So here we see with the X-ray, AWS X-ray, okay, which is very important in this sense. I mean, if you want to now trace your application. So if you were doing the developing serverless application on AWS, then as a course, right, that one would probably be talking about X-ray, because that helps you to now monitor in terms of the requests that come in, okay, and then how that goes to be. So that's just one of the services that you could always check out, if anything. So I'm done with that. I could just create the topic and then I should be good to go. Okay, so I could just create that and then I should be good to go. Now, once I'm done creating this particular topic, right, it means that I now have to create some subscription. The subscription in the sense that who do I want to receive some bit of a message from this particular SNS topic. So if there's a message published there, or if there's some request published there, who do I want to receive that? And you can see that there are a number of options here. So we have the SQS in the sense that you can pass this particular topic to, if there's some message put in there, you can pass that to an SQS service. You can even still pass that to a Lambda, or you can even have some email. You can have HTTP, HTTPS. There are quite a number of things which are available. Now, with the HTTPS, for example, that would mean that maybe you want to, let's say, integrate that into some other service that you're working with, or even, let's say, for your Slack channel, right? So if you wanted to now publish this to the Slack channel or something, these are all options you can have with the HTTPS. But I'll just go with the email, okay? And then I could just go ahead, just type out my email. And then that should be okay. So once you're done creating the subscription, right? Once you create the subscription, then you have to now make sure that you confirm that. Okay, so I've created a subscription, all right, it is there. But I have to make sure that I check my email to make sure that I've confirmed the subscription. So let me just see if I'll have the message coming through. Let's see. Yes, so I have that coming through. Okay, yes, so it says you have chosen to subscribe to this particular topic. Okay, so I have to now confirm the subscription. Now, if you do not confirm the subscription, it means that you would not actually get to receive that message in question. So once I confirm, it opens a page up for me. I confirm that, and then I'm pretty much good to go with the topic in question. Okay, so if I come back to this, yes, so it shows that I've been confirmed. Okay, now if I create another email or some other request to some other space, let's say, let me just use my second email. Yes, so I just want to show you something from here. And yeah, just a quick one, please. As I'm going along, right, if there's something you are not clear with, you can feel free to raise your hands and then ask, or you can actually just let me know, just unmute and then just go ahead and then ask. Okay, so you can see here, it says pending confirmation. Okay, so that means that I've not confirmed. At this rate, it means that I can't be able to receive any message from this. If there's a message published here, I can't be able to receive that. So let's try something here. So if I do publish message, so let me see, tests for WC, 12 WC, right? I could leave out the message group, not really necessary. Time to leave, not really necessary. And then I can give a body. So this is a test message. Okay. and then that is that. For the message structure, I mean, based on what you need, you can still go with the identical, and then it should be fine. An attribute, if you wanted to add an attribute as well, that is also a possibility that you can work with. Now, when I hit publish message, right, it means that it would actually go ahead to send that message out to the users. Now, the thing here is that because the second email, I did not really go ahead to confirm that, right? It means that it's not going to receive that email. But the one that I confirmed with, which is the my other email, my main email here, it means that I would actually get to receive what? Oh, wait. Okay. I think I sort of unsubscribed at some point in time. Let me just publish the message again. Sorry. Let me just publish that again. Yeah. Okay. So let me just publish the message again. Test 2. 2. Okay, great. Okay. Okay. So let me just go back there. I'm not sure if I'm going to receive that still. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening. Okay, I'm not sure what happened. Probably I'm not configuring that right. But the whole point is that once this is done, right, it should be able to now send out that message. Okay, and then we can be able to view that. Okay, so this is what we'll use once I start off the instance, right? It should be able to make that happen. ID deleted. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening. Okay, but let's do this instead. So let me just go to the initial one that I had here. Yes. So this is actually in there. Let me see if I can publish a message. So test 2. Test 3, right? So you remember at the very start, I was talking about some of the tests that you'd have to run, okay? Because sometimes if you do not run these tests, right, you'll be in an issue where some things that you know should be working will not be working, okay? And then that's not a good thing to have, right? So this is the test, okay? So this actually came true, okay? So it says what? Yeah, so it came from the SNS, and then we had test 2 for the header, and then we have test 3 as part of the body message, right? So this is just for you to see how that looks like. So we'll go ahead. So we have this created, right? So I'll just probably just reuse this one, and then once I have this created, I'll go ahead to the Lambda function, okay? And then we can create the start and then the stop instance. Now, you notice that currently our instance is running. I think it is running. Yes, it is running. Yeah, so currently our instance is running, right? So let me just go back here. Yeah. Okay, so our instance is running, so that's why we still have that here. So what I want us to try out is the stop function, okay, to make sure that we're able to stop that. And so we have the stop code here. I think I did not go through that. Okay, I did go through that. Yes. So we have that here. Okay, so we can now go ahead to reuse that and then see how that's going to look like. So I already created that here. Okay, so I'll just walk us through how that looks like. I'll walk us through how the Lambda system or the Lambda function, the environment actually looks like. Okay, so if you come to your Lambda function, okay, wait, let me just go back. I'll come back to this. But let's try creating a new function just to see how that feels like. So if I'm creating a new function, right, the good thing is that you can have some blueprints. Okay, so AWS has quite a number of examples which are available for us. So you can see quite a number of things here. I think there may be one for starting or stopping the EC2 instance. That's a good thing. Yeah. Yeah, so I think this is an interesting one. Okay, so if you have some things within Slack, okay, you could have that. If you wanted to work with some recognition, so the Amazon recognition service, you could actually look at that. And there are also a number of things there. I was hoping that they will have something for EC2. Yeah, okay, but no problem. Right, so you can use this template. These are already built out for you. Let me see if I could click on one and then we see what exactly the function will look like. So this is more or less for Node. Okay, I think it's Node. Yeah, this is Node. So you can see that you have that showing here. If I picked out one for Python, let me see. Yeah, let me just do with this. You see that they actually get to give me that particular code, okay, which is also available. So these are more or less blueprints which are already there, which you could pick from, okay. But in our case, maybe you could just go with the author from scratch. You provide the name, okay. You select the runtime that you want to use. So if it's PowerShell, if it's Java, I mean, whichever language it is, right? It's totally up to you. You can select that, and then you can pick from there, and then you need an important thing, which is the execution rule. Now, why is this important? You notice that for our use case, it means that our Lambda function would now interact with the EC2 instance. And based on the security components in there, if I do not actually allow or create a rule that would allow for that to interact with it, then that would be an issue. So I would actually I already had a rule available. Okay, so that's for the start or stop. Okay, so we could actually just review that just to see what exactly is being done. The key thing is that it allows for our Lambda to now interact with the EC2 instance. If we do not create that particular rule, okay, or do not make that execution rule available, then it means that our Lambda function will be working all right, but it cannot complete or it cannot interact with the functions that we want to do. So let me just extend this a bit. Okay, so you can see that what it allows for two things, right? So to start or stop the instance. So for our EC2 instance, it allows to start or stop. And then, of course, I made that a wildcard, okay, just so that I don't have to, let's say, break that down. Okay, now if you are writing your permissions or your policies, the good thing is that make that very targeted. Don't open that up to every instance. So, for example, if I wanted to make it specific, right, I could actually specify the ARN of the Lambda function that I'm creating, so that will be the only function that will be able to access it. That is very good, because at least in that sense, you know, if there's, let's say, a hack or something, you still have your resources protected. Okay, so that's just one of the things to look out for. So I have that done. Okay, so in terms of the rule, I just specify that, and then I could go ahead to create the function. Okay, now this is the approach to create that. Let's go back to the function that was created, and then we'll just view a few things from there. So if you create that, of course, this is how it's going to look like. Okay, you're able to view that. You can view that with a diagram or a template. That is absolutely fine. Okay, so the template, you get to see what exactly is in there. And of course, you get to understand some fundamentals. So it means that for this, there's what, a memory size of what, 128. In terms of the storage, right, you have 512. Okay, don't forget, whatever you do within your Lambda, right, it gets lost after the run is done. So it's ideal that once you're done with everything and then you want to save some files, either you push that to the S3 using the SDK, or you move that to an EBS or something. Whatever you want to do, however you want to manage that, it's good for you to actually go ahead to do that. Now you can see here, for example, we have a variable, the environment variable. I'll show how that looks like later on. But I mean, these are some of the things which are available. You can see for the policies, right, what exactly is available. So it's also for the described instances to view the instances which are there. For the SNS to publish some SNS topic, that's also some permission that we could also have. So let me come here with the configuration, right? And then I talked about the environment variable. Okay, so the environment variable is very key, because now if I wanted to have some API keys or whatever it is, I could put that here. Of course, there are a number of other things which are available. Some general information in terms of the storage, you can see that there. in terms of the triggers, so what would actually cause this particular Lambda function to run? So I could add a trigger. Okay, so let's say maybe some API gateway, some request from a load balancer. I mean, there are quite a number of things that you could also look at. There are some third-party options which are also available. So you have the Auth0, you have the bit line, you have quite a number of these which you could have as a trigger. In our case, would actually trigger that manually for now, so that should be fine. And then we have what? The permissions, right? So the permissions, we've talked about that already. So in terms of the resource groups and all of that, these are available. And you have the destination. So where do you send all your requests to, which is also a possibility. Now, this is a fairly new option, which is what? The function URL. Now, what this does is that it provides you with a URL where you can now go ahead to execute or activate that particular Lambda function. Okay, so you can create the URL, and then based off that, you can use that programmatically to actually be able to access that. Now, prior to this, okay, of course, this will not give you some bit of flexibility. Okay, if you were using, let's say, an API gateway, that will give you more flexibility. But if you wanted something very quick to work with, you could always go ahead with the function URL. You can give some authentication, or you can go ahead without some bit of authentication. Then it creates that particular URL for you. So let me just go ahead. Let me create that for now. Probably we may just get to see how that looks like. So it creates that URL for you, and then you can be able to access that. There are a number of things here with the environment variable, the tags, the VPC. So if you want your Lambda function to sit within a VPC, that is also a possibility. And then, of course, if you wanted to connect to a database, so if you run some operations, you want to now put that in an RDS, that is also possible. And then, of course, monitoring is there, and then quite a number of things as well. And then one important thing here is in terms of the file system, right? So if you had, let's say, an EFS, for example, you could always be able to add that here, so that once you make that request or you process all of that, you are now able to share that along as well, and then save that to your EFS or something like that. So these are quite a number of the things that you could look out for. You could talk about the versions. Okay, so which version you are working with, the alias. Okay, so all of these are also available. Right. I'll pause here. I don't know if there's any question from anyone. Any question from anyone? Yes. You could raise your hand if you have some questions. Any question? Okay, so if you are all good, you could just put a 1 in the chat if you are following, and then we are good to go. Or did I lose all of us here? Hello? Okay, sure. I thought I lost you, because I think I spoke so much, so I thought I lost you. Great. So we are all here. Good. So let's get in there then. So we've already seen the code, right? So I commented a number of the things out. So where we saw with the environment variable, right? If you wanted to use that, it means that I'll have to now call that. Now here, I actually put that there directly, okay, within the code. So you can see that it's already here. And then, of course, the other aspects are there. Now, an important thing is with the topic. So the topic I'm publishing to, okay, to be able to receive the message. So I have to also add that ARN here, okay, which makes it available. And then once I'm done, I have everything going, and then it should be pretty much good to go. So I want us to use the function URL just to see how that looks like. So let me come back here. Let's see. Let me do this. So let me just split the screen a bit. I don't know, for some reason my PC is responding pretty slow. Okay. So I just want us to have the dashboard, the EC2 dashboard, side by side with the Lambda console, just to see what exactly is going to happen once we run that. Okay, so let me just have that here. Okay, so you see that we currently have two boxes running. Okay, so let me just go back here. Where's the the function URL. Okay. Okay, no, I got the wrong one. Yes. Okay, so the function URL is here. Okay, now let's just open that and then let's see what's going to happen. All right, so it shows now, okay, because in my function I actually did not return anything. Okay, so that's just that, because I did not return anything after I was done. So if I did return something. Okay, notification message. Okay, that was one of the examples where I did not return anything, but it shows now. Okay, let's see, stop. So it's supposed to return this notification message, but no problem, that's absolutely fine. So this, once it loads, right, it means that it's done processing that. So let me see, let me refresh that from here. Let's see. Okay, so you can see that here the box has actually stopped, right? So you can see that based off me running that, it actually stopped. Let me start that again, and then let's do that manually to see how it's going to look like. But I don't know if you get what exactly is happening here, right? So based off my function, I'm actually now stopping that EC2 instance. Of course, we are talking serverless here, and working with an EC2 may not be so ideal, but this is more straightforward to understand the concept and then how it looks like. Okay, so I want to just now trigger that manually from here. So if I come to test, right, I could go ahead and then test that out. So let's see. If I hit test, right, it should run. Okay, and then it tells me that what it's actually done. Okay, so you get to see the details. Okay, in terms of that, now it tells me that what my instance has been what stopped. So this same thing that runs here is what we actually have from here when we say that what when we click the function URL. Okay, so it's that same approach. So imagine that within your code, at some point in time, after some task are run, you want to now stop the instance. Then that means that you could actually take advantage of this, make a request, maybe a GET request to this, and then it should be pretty much good to go. Okay, let me see something from here. If I had my my Postman open, I think we could also maybe create a GET request just to see how it looks like. But no worries, we literally get that in there. Okay, so that's that. Now I want us to go ahead and then let's look at the other function. And let me just share my email. So once I stopped that, there were a number of emails that would have come through. So let's see how that's looking like. All right. Yes. So you can see that here we get to see that what the instance has been stopped because what I now publish the message to the SNS. Okay, so based off this, I could literally work on a number of things. Even with me publishing to the SNS, right, I could still have some chain reactions, okay, which would now let's say maybe perform something for me in the background, or maybe kickstart another Lambda function. So it's always a possibility that you can have in there. All right. So I have this done. Let's work with starting that. So currently this is stopped. Okay. Yeah. So currently the instance is stopped. Okay. So we have that there. So let's go to this to start that as well, and then let's see. So I could still use the function URL just to see, but I want us to review the code because this code is different, a bit different from the one that I showed. So let's see what we can have here. Okay, yes, so it's literally the same anyway, but just a few differences, which will not be so much to look at. Yeah. Okay, so I published that the message here, okay, which is okay. It notifies them, the user in question. And then, of course, we pick out the IP address, which will be created. Okay, so let's start with the function URL first, and then let's see how it's going to look like. So once I create this here, so you see that this is actually taking a while than the first one, okay, because now it's waiting for it to finish. Okay. All right. So it says what? Instance created. Okay. Hello there. Kindly head to this link, or so the link that we gave that, and then we can open that and see how it's going to look like. And then, of course, the email is something that I've received at the moment. Okay, so it says the email is in there as well. So that is good. Right. Okay, so this actually loads, right? So it means that our page has started. All right. Now let's stop the instance again. Let's see. So I could stop that from here. Yeah, so it's running. I could just stop that. And then let's run that manually just to see how it looks like. And if I refresh this at some point, it should show as a blank. Yeah, so it should show that what this is actually not reachable. Okay, so let's come back here and then let's run that manually from here. So just test, because I did not make any changes, right? So I don't have to deploy that. Okay, so I could test that out. Should show. Okay, all right. So this message, so because it's still stopping, it's not stopped. So the start means that I'm moving from a stop state, but now it's actually in a stopping state. So let's wait for it to complete a bit, and then we should be good to go. But I don't know if anyone has some question. Yeah, so it's stopped now. So if I run that again to test it, it should be able to show. Yes, but I don't know if anyone has some question. Any question from anyone? Okay, so it's done, and it's giving me a new IP address. So you notice that if I come here and then I reload it, right, this is not going to work because this was the former IP address which was available. And so based on the IP address that I picked, so 3519250, it means that I could now use this to open the site in question. Okay, let's see here. Okay. All right. So once that opens, then it means that we are pretty much good to go. All right. So based off this, I could be able to now stop and then start that. Okay. So it's very simple. The Lambda literally takes care of all of that for me, and then I could now work from there. Now the next bit I want to do is to now have some bit of an event. Okay. So let's say a scheduler. Okay. So let's go back to our event bridge. Okay, let's go to our event bridge then. And then from there, we can now schedule, let's say the start and then the stop. Okay, so based off some particular schedule, we can now be able to do that. So let's say maybe I have a 30-minute window. Then I could now work from there to start or stop the instance, and then it should be good to go. I don't know if there's any question from anyone. Any question? Yes. Yeah. Good. All right. Okay, so Fanny? Yeah. Okay, sure. So I'll actually do that. Just give me a second. Let's see. I think all of a sudden my internet went back. Or do you have an outage again? I'm not sure you have an outage. Yeah. Okay. It's taking longer than I anticipate. And I think you can still see my screen, right? So if you can still see my screen, it means my internet is okay. So I'm not sure why it's taking long to open. Yeah, okay, but once it's loaded, let me just take us through the code as Fanny asked. Right, so this is more or less the code, right? Wait, I created a repo. Let me just share the link before I forget that. I'll push the code to that side later on, but just to have that available for you folks to look at. Okay, so that's the GitHub repo, so you can always check that out. I'll push the code, these ones later on. Okay, so just take note of that. Yeah, so Fanny, what we are doing is we've set the region, okay, and then based off this, we are able to start or stop the instance. And I was saying that we're actually using the Boto 3, which is the SDK for how do you call it? For Python, okay, when it comes to the AWS environment, the AWS SDK for Python. And then based off that, right now, we could now instantiate or start off we can create an instance of that. Okay, so the Boto client, and then we can do that for the SNS as well. So the EC2 and then the SNS, because those are the key ones that we are using. And for our instance, we have two options, right? Either we hard code it or we can have an environment variable. That was what I showed within the Lambda environment, where you could okay, this is shown now. Yeah, so within the Lambda side of things, you could now go ahead to create some bit of an instance, okay, which you could work with, okay. So the environment variable, sorry. So you can create the environment variable there where you can work from there. And of course, if I wanted to add the SNS topic, that's also possible. Now, based off this, right, for the Boto 3, it means that I could now go ahead to start the instance. And then I pass to it that particular instance ID that I want to stop. Okay, so that is what I pass here. So it says what the instance ID is what instances. So that's what we have here. And then based off that, I could now have some message, okay, which will say that, okay, this particular instance is stopped. And then I could also print that out to be visible. And then, of course, the return. And then once that is done as well, we publish the message. So it's more or less a very simple code, okay? But then once you go through that, through the repo, you'd actually get to see some bit of that, okay? I hope, Fanny, that helps a bit. Not so much, but I hope it should help a bit, yes. All right. Good. So we have that done. Okay, so the event bridge now becomes the next thing. Now, this would be a video you could also check out, okay, just to get a fair idea of how that is looking. Let me see if I could get that here. Yes. Yeah. So you could actually watch that to see what other things you can do with the serverless. Okay. So that's that. Now, if I come here with schedules, I don't know. I'm not sure I have some schedules already running. Right, but the key idea here is that based off this, right, I could now set a schedule which would now start off the how do you call it, the AWS Lambda. Okay, so instead of me now going to initiate that automatically or manually, right, it should be able to do that for me automatically. Okay, this is rather slow. Not sure. Okay, I think it may be specific to the how do you call it? It may be specific to the event bridge service, yeah. Because you notice that the other ones are literally running pretty fast. If I'm moving to the other side, it is pretty fast. Okay, no, slow. Okay, yeah. So this is fast as compared to the event bridge. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay, so we have this done, right? So let's look at creating a schedule. Okay, so if I come here and then I could create a schedule, right? Now, based off this, there are a number of options that you could have anyway. So if you have a running a one-time bit or you want a recurring one, you could always have that. Now, if you remember, in terms of the cron, okay, so you can set that as what a cron job. Now there's this site cron tab cron tab group, if I'm correct, right? So if you want to set a cron job at any point in time and then you are not really good with the syntax, right, you could always go to crontab.group, and then it actually helps you to pick out how your schedules will look like or how whatever schedule would actually feel like. Okay, so that's just on the side. Let me just drop that in the chat here. Yes, so you can see that. Oh wait, I got that wrong. Please, it's crontab.group. It's like the other U does not want to come true. Oh, yes, it did come this time. Yeah. So based off this, right, you can now be able to set up some bit of some bit of an approach as to how you want that to go. Okay. So you have this. Okay. They tells you that what at 4:05 it actually is able to run that. Okay. So what if I wanted to have that at a different time? So let's say I want to have that at let's say 6 a.m. because people are in the office at 6 a.m., right? So that's something I could set. And then I could now copy that. And then when I come back to my event bridge, it means that what I could also paste that here. Okay. So so we could also look at that. Yes, funny. I would actually take those questions once I'm done with this, and so we should be good to go. All right. So don't worry so much. I just want to round up with the event bridge, and then we'll go ahead to take some of the questions. Okay. So this is that. So you can now set that. Okay. So let's say maybe you want that to be 6. Okay. Now, if I don't set the day of month, if I don't set the month and all of those things, it means that it will literally run every other time. Okay, just as we had in here. Okay, so if I set, let's say maybe the day to be 4, it means that it runs what on day 4. That's day 4 will be what? I think it will be a Monday or Tuesday. I'm not sure, but it will run on the 4th day of the month. Okay, so that's just one of the things that you could also specify. If you wanted to specify, let's say the month as well, it means that what it goes specifically to the month. So 4th of March, every other time it runs that, and then that becomes more or less something that you literally have. Okay, so you could set that. Okay, so for this, if I set that, let me set that to 8.5, then that means that it's actually going to run 8.5 every other time. And if you want a time frame, you could always have that as well. We are in Ghana, so we don't really do much of the daylight saving. Okay, so that is a good thing. We don't have to worry so much about that. Let me just put the asterisk here, then it should be okay. Okay, I think I missed something from here. Yeah, okay. All right, so you literally have that there. Okay, and I could hit next from here. Oh, why are they doing this to me? Okay, so I could hit that. So the flexible time window, at least just to give you some bit of an idea of how flexible you'll be on that. And I could say what's the Lambda function, right? So at that schedule, these are all the other things that you could also run. Okay, maybe if you had a pipeline or something, it's also possible. So we'll go with what the Lambda function. Okay, and then of course, we could select an already existing function, which is what either the start or the stop. Okay, so let's say the start, then I could now specify that. Yeah, so that's okay. So based off that, there are also a number of things you could look at in terms of the retry and then the restart. These are all possible in terms of the encryption, in terms of permissions, right? So permissions is very important because now the event bridge will have to interact with the Lambda. So it needs to have the right permissions to be able to do that. Okay, so with the existing role, I think I had one role already available. Let me see. I'm not sure which one I did. Okay, yes, so I think it'll be this one. Yeah, so one of these ones should be okay, right? And then once I have that, it means that it also goes ahead to create that for me. So once I create the schedule, it's going to run at that specific time. So you can even see here, this gives you a fair idea of the schedule. So tomorrow is going to run at 8:05, you see, and then it's going to go on like that and then like that, right? So based on this, I could have a start, I could have a stop. So I could have the start at, let's say, 8:05. I could have the stop at, let's say, 8:30. Okay, so just a combination of that. And then it means that I'm actually saving cost even on the EC2 that I'm going to be working on. Now, I'm not going to save this. I'm just going to have us review the initial one that I'd set for the start and then the stop. And then we should be good to go. All right, but I think once that is done, it should be the end of, my demonstration. Now, I'd mentioned that I had 2 demos in mind. So for the second demo, what I wanted to do was to also implement the amplify, okay, where we'd have a very simple, how do you call it? A very simple web page. We upload some files, and then Lambda would actually now write some captions on the file using some modules or some frameworks. Okay, so it just writes on that, and then that file now shows as part of everything. So it's more like a full-blown web application of sorts, but just making use of the Lambda and all of that. I actually intend to make a video of that, so I'll share on my socials when I actually do that, because I was actually running through that to have as a demo, but I didn't have the time to do that. But I'll always share on my social. So you definitely see that later on. But let's review what we have here. Okay, the key thing I want to look at is in terms, not the schedule. Okay, I wanted to see in terms of the permissions, but I think it's not showing here. No problem. Yeah, but I mean, this is something that you could look at. So you see here, for example, for the day of the week, right? The day of the week actually starts with a Sunday, so that's one. So I just did from 2 to 6, so it means that Mondays to Fridays, because of course we are literally in the office Mondays to Fridays, and then I set the time, so 7:30, and then it's able to run that for me. Okay, so these are some of the things that you could have. So instead of what initializing that manually, right, I could just have that done, and then it should be good to go. The target, right? So it starts this. Oh yes, the role is here. Okay, so you can also see that the role in question, right? So we start the instance, and then that becomes all of that. Okay. All right. So I'll pause here, and I think that will be the end for me in terms of the demonstration. If anyone has some question, we could take that. I see there's already some in the chat waiting, so we'll just pick from there and then we can go ahead. But if anyone else has some questions as well, you can feel free to ask those questions as well. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So someone, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Emmanuel, thank you very much. So at a point, I had some network challenge. I don't know. So I'm sure maybe you might have answered this, but I didn't get it. The GitHub page, are you yet to populate it with the work, or because I opened and it seems?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm here to do that. So I'll do that after the session. But I just wanted to share the link, the repo, so that at least I don't forget to share it with you, because I don't know which. Okay, no, I could have shared that in the Slack, the Discord channel. Yeah, but just to make that available, I'll do the upload later on. Yes.
Very well. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right, good. Any other questions from anyone? I see Fanny has some questions, so let me just take that. Let's see. Okay, so as a new developer, if you want to write something like this code, is there any AWS resource we can follow other than AI tools? Yeah, just imagine if I was to automate something whenever I load data. Yes. So funny, there's actually some extensive documentations available. With this, the key ones you have to reference will be the SDK. Let me see if I could find that, because you notice that for here, we're actually interacting with the AWS services. Okay, so you have to have a fair idea of how the SDK works like, okay, to be able to use that. Let me see. Okay. Right. So I'll share the link for the SDK. Okay. And that's a good point you raise. Okay. Because if you do not understand how things work, okay, if you don't understand how the whole process works like, and then you are sticking to just the AI tools, you may actually get lost in there. So it's good that you understand how the SDKs work, and then AI could also help you to better whatever that you are doing. Okay. So I'll share those in the chat. I'm trying to just get that. I'll share that in the chat. See. Yep. So I'll share that in the chat. I don't know which of the languages you are mostly working with, but I'll share for the Python. I think that should be okay. Yes. Is there any question from anyone else? Any other question from anyone else? Yep. Yes, Emmanuel, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi again, Emmanuel. So can we replicate a microservice architecture that we do with Kafka, or rather some kind of scheduling that we do? You know how Kafka handles topic, right? And kind of, event-driven kind of microservice, right? Is it advisable to write a Lambda, where you have like your services? For example, you have the notification service and that sends email, right, on any action on the website, and you have one that handles probably processing some events with AI, right? And if you have these services, probably you have a scheduler. Is it advisable to have that like with AWS Lambda? And also, like, what depths do you not advise one go into while setting that up using Lambda?
Okay, sure. I mean, that's a very extensive question. What I would say to that is, of course, it depends on the use case that you're working on. That's more or less like the starting point, right? So based off your use case. So I know that for let's say even with the example I gave with the S3. Now S3 automatically has the what we call the S3 events built in there. So it may be easier to actually use that as compared to, let's say, maybe using a Lambda function because it's right in there. Even with the EC2, the example I just showed, you could actually set a schedule for your instance to start or stop, right? That's also built in there. So, I mean, based on your use case, you could have a different approach from there. For Kafka, I've not used that extensively. I mean, I'm actually looking to do some bit of the data engineer course like next year, like certification next year. So I'll definitely be checking out a number of those things. But I mean, if there's that use case where you can implement that, you could always look at that. And I think if you go to the Kafka page, for example, you'd actually get to see how do you call it? Some of the use cases. So just as we saw for the serverless with the DoorDash and then the Liberty Mutual and all of those things. So you may have some examples of what people are doing. It would also inform in terms of what some of the best practices or some of the architectures you could build from as you are deploying your application. Yeah. So that's just what I would say from there. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Okay. I'm not sure we'd have okay, for the modules, I'm not sure there will be some extensive one on maybe data processing and all of that for the 12-week challenge. I mean, yeah, but you could always check on that. Paula, I was checking out the 12-week challenge page itself. I think there are also some bit of tutorials that you could follow anyway, where you can go along with the workshop. I don't have the link ready available. I would have just shown you guys how it is. But once you go to the workshop page, you'd actually get to see that. And then you can also pick from there. Okay. All right, great. Any question from anyone else?
Yeah. Also, Emmanuel, sorry.
Yeah.
Does the SMS service provide sending SMS aside email?
Yes, it does. But the issue with that is it comes at a cost. It comes at a cost, so you have to take note of that once you are doing that. Yes, it comes at an extra cost. The email is free, the HTTP and all of those things are free, but once you step into the world of the SMS, then you have to now pay on a few things. Yes, yeah. Okay. All right. Any other question from anyone? If not, I'll probably hand over to our hosts to take over. Yes.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Really appreciate that. Was I think that was like 10 sessions in one session. You really nailed it. I was like, where was I when I was learning serverless the hard way? So you've done an amazing job.
I think sometimes the hard way too is good. So we would definitely go back to the hard way sometimes. Yes.
Yeah, sometimes the hard way, breaking things. What I usually say to people, and I believe you agree with that, is please don't do it one pass only. Like do it, break it, build it again, break it, and build it. Like fail fast, learn fast. That is the only way. Yeah, so please, as you're also going to be getting the recording, it's going to be shared in the recordings and resources channel in our Discord server. Again, we'll extract, I think Emmanuel will share with me, I think, so add the repo and any links that Emmanuel shared during the session, we'll also share there so that in case anyone was wondering when Emmanuel says, I've pasted a link in the chat, and they're watching the recording, they're wondering what is the link? Exactly. But anyways, I'd like to give this opportunity to one of our participants to give you kind of a vote of thanks before we wrap it up. So anyone can raise their hand I know I saw a couple of virtual claps and emojis. But I think it would mean a lot to Emmanuel to hear from one of you, and also just to say what they've been able to learn. I can see we can have yes, we can have all of you. Let's start with Emmanuel, then Roland, then Fanny. Emmanuel, over to you.
Yeah, and before that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I had some vouchers available. Let's see, about 10 of them, but I don't know how we're going to have that around or pass that around.
You have what?
Yes. So I have 10 vouchers, $20 vouchers, like sorry, AWS credits, sorry.
Oh yeah.
10 AWS credits, but I'm not sure how we're going to pass that around. Anyway.
Let me tell you how you're going to do it. Anyone who asked a question, put something in the chat, interacted with you, just tell us their names. They're there. And then you're going to give those 10 people so that people are going to be more interactive and such.
Good.
That is how you're going to do it. You have it, you know those who have been asking you questions, being interactive, making you feel you're not alone in this. So that's how you're going to do it.
All right. So I think we can go round the vote of thanks, and then I'll just maybe set that up as well.
Yeah, sure. Then you can announce. Then you set up that. Then they'll give you their emails or how you're going to distribute.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Manuel. Really appreciate it. Love that. Thank you so much for those credits. Yeah. So we had Emmanuel. Emmanuel, over to you.
Well, we have many manuals. I'm Kevin, but I think you're talking about
Emmanuel, the vote mover, the vote of thanks mover.
I think you talked about me when you said people that asked questions. So my Emmanuel, please, I'm the one. And thank you. Thank you for the session. This is my first time of joining the meeting, actually, and I'm very much impressed and would want to come again some other time to. It's a wealth of knowledge here, and I learned a lot, especially on the SNS. It's my first time of seeing someone use it, right, implement it, and it was great knowing this, and I hope to learn more, actually. So thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Kelvin, for this session.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Manuel. As before we get to the next person, I can see a couple of questions. Kevin, when will the recording be made available? Immediately. I think once it has been processed, I'll liaise with Paula, then we can have it as later on today. So it will be as early as today. Then Fanny is asking, anyone knows if there is any other 12-week AWS workshops for AWS? So we have these running up until, we have 6 more weeks of these going on. I can tell you for sure that from what I know, I think AWS User Group Yaounde are the pioneers of these. And it is, if you are talking about 12-week AWS Workshops Challenge, I've not seen any other user group do it the way User Group Yaounde does it. So I don't think you're going to go there and find anything better than this. But yes, if there are other ways of learning, you can go to workshops.aws and set out some challenge on yourself. But this is the best structured kind of learning. I can tell you, we are in a community where we see all the user groups across the globe, and it's only Yaounde that has been able to do this so well. That is why for us, we just follow, we just collaborate. Manuel can tell you, we don't want to replicate the same thing. We say, we even ask Paula and team, when are you doing the next one? So that we jump into the train. Okay, I'll take it back to, I think it was the next person, let me see. The next person was Roland. Over to you.
Yes, yes, hello team. Amazing session. And I was paying particular attention at the beginning when Emmanuel said just was it a few years ago public speaking was a thing, and so I was paying attention. I wanted to see if I see any signs, but no. Fantastic, like on point, 10 out of 10. I think he intentionally tried to drop our our expectations so that he would deliver a master class, and he achieved that. It was dope. Like I have no words, and I hope we'll have a chance to to have him again before the end of the 12-week challenge. So I'll be glad if the team can make that happen, because I personally learned a lot today. I like how hands-on it was.
So for that, speak to Paula.
If you want Emmanuel next, you need to ask him for his rate card. He has a good rate. I'm just joking. Yeah, but he's a very good. You can see he's very talented, and yeah, you definitely, for his time, there's some dollars to pay. Funny. Over to you. Thanks so much, Roland. Funny. I don't know whether you're going once. Are you able to speak? Oh, you can talk, but you can put it in the chat. It's okay. I think with that, I don't know whether Paula are in a position to just put like the last parting shot before we end the session.
All right, I'm also here. There's no way this session will end without me giving also my vote of thanks to Emmanuel. Right, so by the way, Emmanuel was part of the first instructors I had when I started learning AWS, and he knows I've already told him before that he was actually the best among all the instructors I had, and I love his method of teaching and all that. And I would like to use this opportunity to thank him for this amazing session. Hi. So I'd like to thank you guys also for making it to today's session, and thank you, Kevin, for standing in for me, and I'm really grateful for everything. All right, that's all for me. So Kevin, over to you.
Thank you so much, Paula. Really appreciate you, and always a humble opportunity to also support the community doing this. Considering I was part of the very first one, it helped me become something. A lot of different things. These were challenge. I think it's the challenge that also made me get renewed as a community builder, because I started creating technical articles. So please don't take this for granted. Shout about it, post about it on Medium or Hashnode, whichever your favorite blogging platform, and also make people know about it on LinkedIn. Just make sure you shout about what you're learning. And I saw Eve Minus say that you're starting out in your journey, you're grateful, and please continue leveraging the community to your advantage. I saw Samuel raise his hand. Usually don't let anyone speak after the host, but anyways, I'm just joking. Samuel, over to you, then we wrap it up.
Yeah, and Kevin, just before he comes in, I think we may be able to get the vouchers. I may be able to get the credits for everyone. So if you are interested, you could just drop your email in the chat, and then I'll just send that to you. Yeah, it's sure. $20. So if you could make something happen from there before the year ends. Yeah.
Exactly. So as Emmanuel has said, please share your emails in the chat, all that have been interacting, and yeah, because even as sharing the email is also part of interacting. So I think so you can see all of them are there coming up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Samuel, over to you as the emails come through.
Or someone, is that from I think maybe from a previous time, I'm not sure. Someone?
Yeah, or maybe it was an old hand or something. Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. I don't know whether you have enough emails. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think there are 2 more left before you have enough. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, for everyone, literally, I think you could put your email in there, because there's a handful to pass around.
Please, everyone, put your emails. Yeah. Yes, please put in your emails, all of you, so that Emmanuel can also share with you the resources and anything else that you also might want. I also put mine so that I don't miss out on Emmanuel's goodies. You might be giving dollars. You might be taking people to a party, and I'm here just acting as. Anyways, thank you so much, Emmanuel. We really appreciate you making the event and taking us through. As usual, you're going to be having our Wednesday office support hours this coming Wednesday. Please join us. And in case you have also any questions towards Emmanuel, please, we have the questions channel in the Discord. Please ask it. And we're going to also make sure it also gets answered. Or unless you're not unable to answer, we can get someone to answer for you. Okay, that is it. Emmanuel, anything before we wrap it up?
Just to say thank you for. Yeah. So thank you for joining. And I know we've sort of literally run a bit over time, but I mean, good. We had a number of things going as well. And what I would encourage is that, I mean, let's keep going from there, and let's keep sharing. I think I've seen a number of you share what you've been doing so far, which is very, very good. I mean, within the community builder space, for example, that's like a very key thing. And then one of the things that sets you apart from others. So let's keep building. And then if you have some questions, just let us know, and then we should be okay to go. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Keep the session a little bit on for a while, and I'll stop the recording so that, Emmanuel, once you capture all the images, just let me know so that you can end the session.
Okay, sure. I mean, I've captured those that are in there at the moment, so it should be fine. Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you. See you soon. See you on the next one.
All right. See you. Bye-bye.